Hello, 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 everyone. And hold on, I need some coffee. Yeah, that's good. Welcome to another live stream Instagram chat here at the Living Room Community Art Studio, or the Living Room from home, as we're calling it. We're glad to see you joining us today. Super excited for our guest. A little selfish on my part because it's getting back to some of the things that I love, the things that I do as part of my creative practice as an actor, being in love with film and visual storytelling of that nature. Today, we have a wonderful guest, a filmmaker named Rebeca Ortiz. And I have to thank Ann Tipper for first letting me know and introducing me to this director, Ann Tipper, the fabulous cinematographer, who just, never fails to open up worlds to me. Of like, someone, she's on the growing edge. She's learning about constantly developing her craft and getting to know the industry in new and exciting ways, which includes meeting and learning from the younger generations of filmmakers that are out there. And as an actor, that's something that really excites me too. Something that I feel is really important, to keep in contact with those new voices coming up, to learn about how they're telling stories, what kind of stories are important to them, and just, seeing where the future of filmmaking is headed. So, hello, everyone. Without further ado, why don't I just invite Rebeca in to join the conversation. Let's see if I can do this. Here we go. I needed this coffee. Thanks, guys.
Hello.
Hello, hello,
Hey,
hello.
how are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm good. I'm surrounded by plants, so I'm good.
Yes, what a beautiful, beautiful backdrop. That is
Thank
extraordinary.
you. Thank you. I know the good thing about, quarantine is that we've had time to take care of our plants very well. And by me, I mean mostly my partner. He takes care of most of them. I enjoy them a lot, though.
Yeah, I know there have been a few benefits to staying home or being away from people, but yeah. Now, okay, so I've just been getting to know you, and I'm familiar with some of your work and some of the collaborations you've worked on in the past. But for folks who are watching or listening who may not be familiar with you, can you introduce yourself, who you are, what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. My name's Rebeca Ortiz. I am a filmmaker generally. I mostly produce, but I've also started writing and directing. I currently have a film that I've written and directed called Abuela. It's in post-production. I also produced a film that just recently won a CSA called Pick. It's a short film written and directed by Alicia K Harris. And yeah, I also have a couple of different projects on the go right now. So I graduated from Ryerson in 2016 and just trying to figure out my way. I'm on my journey right now.
So far the journey has been pretty freaking exciting, if you don't mind saying. It seems like, it's like from the outside, it looks like all things have just magically happened, that the successes you've had have just sort of, fallen into your lap. What has that journey been like? Because I know it's not effortless as it seems.
No, definitely. So to kind of go back, but 2016 was when me and Alicia started working on a film called Love Stinks, which was a film that's set in the 80s. We shot it on film at Ryerson. It was our thesis film. And anyway, so that film ended up being like the first beginning of my first like real thing that I produced. Like I kind of dabbled in producing in university, but like this was like the first big thing, and it was really awesome. And yeah, and after that, I guess we graduated. We did really well with that film. It won an award at the Ryerson University Film Festival, and then we went to festivals with that. And as soon as I graduated, it was like, I was a really intense in student like leadership. I was like, I'm the course union president, and then I was like musicians at Ryerson events coordinator. I was doing all these things that when I graduated, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I have to fill up all this time. So I like obviously got like 3 jobs for some reason. I needed to make the money too. So I was like working at a restaurant at night, and then I was working at the Ryerson Image Center during the day. And then I picked up this other job doing like social media for this Norwegian co-production, and kind of was just a little bit of everything because I had no idea what my next steps were supposed to be. You know, you can do so well in university, but by the time you get out, you know, there's not really always like an easy path or guide. But the good thing, I felt the thing that kind of did guide me was when we went on festivals with Love Stinks, and that was the first time where, you know, the film had a life outside of school, where we went to these festivals. We went to New York as like our first festival was Bushwick Film Festival. And that was really special and awesome because we had new people that were watching the film that we didn't know, that were like, this is incredible. Like, that was so funny. Or like just being in a room with complete strangers that were, you know, having a good experience with the film. And then that kind of gave me this itch of being like, I love this. Like, you know, film is such a slow burn that you're like, you know, you don't know how people are reacting to it until you make it and finish it like 2 years later.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, so after that, you know, Alicia mentioned her film Pick at the time. That was just very early stages of developing the idea. And then from there, we, you know, started producing that. That took about 2 years just to like get the funding. And it was a big journey in terms of, we were doing a lot of things that were kind of next level. Like for Love Stinks, we had run a campaign on Kickstarter that was very successful for, you know, being students. Like we raised like $7,000. And then with Pick, it was something similar where we're like, okay, but now let's take it to a whole other level. Let's try to raise $20,000. And we did it after a lot of hard work. But, you know, and in the meantime, Alicia was just like, you know, what if we, like, there's this big application coming up for the Women in Film Toronto and Bravo Fact. So there's this huge pitch competition. Like, I'm working on Pick, but what if you did something? Because we were talking a lot about how I felt like I had a lot of these ideas and how I felt like, you know, when I started film school, I was like, I'm going to be a director. Like, literally, if you read my application to Ryerson, it was like, I don't care that directing is hard. Like, I'm just going to do it. And then I got into film school and I was like crushed a little. And then, yeah. And so she encouraged me to write something and, you know, it just kind of came out. I wrote this short script on my abuela that, you know, it's based on my experience as a first generation Canadian and the struggles of like not being able to speak the same language as my abuela, like growing up, when she would visit from Chile, but then we'll get into that later. But yeah, so it's kind of going all over the place here, but it, you know, it wasn't always easy. It was a lot of like hard times, a lot of tears, like a lot of like doubts, a lot of not knowing, like, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Because again, like, keep in mind, at the same time, over the last 4 years, I've also been working at a restaurant, like fairly between part to full time, depending on like how busy it was with my film stuff. And I took a couple of like not little things, but like cool things here and there if the opportunity presented itself. Like I assistant directed on this really awesome web series called Gay Mean Girls by Heishi Zhang. And that was a really amazing experience for me because that was like right before shooting my own film. And I think the greatest way to like learn how to direct is just by being on set and watching directors do that. And I got to do that with Pick and with Alicia as well, which is really great. But yeah, it's kind of been like, I just try to take opportunities as they come. A lot of the times it's just kind of, I find a huge part of the journey so far has just been like following my intuition to be like, you know, especially when you're a producer in Toronto and I mean, especially in my level right now, there's a lot of people that will reach out, but there's no budget or kind of like a cold call where I don't have any connection. So it's kind of hard. And then sometimes there's really good opportunities, but like, you know, maybe it's just not the right time. So it was a lot of like following my intuition in terms of like, is this the right thing for now? How should I be going about this? And yeah, and now I'm here. So it all worked out so far.
Woo! Wow. Okay. There's so much there. I'm going to read this and I'm going to bring them out again.
Let's do it.
But I think to start, like artists, we do things, right? And I know there's some artists who just focus on one thing at a time, but a lot of folks I know who are creative, there are many projects going on all at the same time. But even then, hearing you talk about your journey, that's a lot. That kind of hustle is familiar to a lot of artists, but for you, where does that hustle come from? What do you think it's rooted in?
I definitely think it's multiple things. I think, you know, my dad he came to Canada like in the 80s as like a refugee from South America, from Chile. And ever since he's been here, he has like kind of that hustler mentality where he's like, I have to like do this for my family and like, you know, just like work really hard and do all this stuff. I think it's partially that. And also seeing that like my dad was his own boss growing up, that was like a huge thing. I was like, oh, that'd be so cool if like you could just like, if I could do that one day. And I felt like looking in terms of like my own self in film, like I really took after him in that sense. But then another level of that, I think it's good, bad. It's just, I think university and like school, like I've always loved school and stuff, but I think there's this weird pressure, especially in, I don't even know how long it's existed, but definitely since I've been in school, where you just, a lot of it is my own self and I don't know where it comes from fully, but it's also a little bit of the pressures of university to be like, you have to be doing, you know, everything at once. Like you're doing these 5 courses, you have to do all these, you know, everything is, you have a timeline of everything you need to be doing. But I think with film, it's a mixture of like the need like to create and like do things, but also this pressure of like, I have to accomplish this by that point. And that's like a whole other side thing where like, you know, sometimes I don't always take care of myself, or I haven't in the past, where I'm like doing way too much. And my friends and family will see it. They're like, we know you're a hard worker and that you're talented, but are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, good. And sometimes I am good, and sometimes like I do really need to take a step back and like evaluate. And I think that's just important. Anyways, that's kind of the answer to your question, but I kind of went off topic there.
No, I love it. That's what this is. We're chatting. It's just a chat. But yeah, there's some, yeah, that sense of becoming overwhelmed and not realizing you're overwhelmed, or maybe the fear of, like the fear of being out of the loop somehow. Like if you stop, or if you take a step back, or if you don't go to that event or tune into that, you know, live stream or that industry such and such, that somehow you'll be left behind. Like there's, for me anyways, there's a sense of, because this industry is so much, and it's weird to refer, it's one of the only creative fields that I find myself referring to as an industry.
Yeah.
It feels like a machine sometimes, and one that isn't always from the artist's point of view. Where am I going with this? I don't know. It feels like there's something else. And so that self-care piece becomes a bit of a balancing act.
Yeah, because I think like a lot of the times we get so used to being like, well, this is my passion and I really care about it. And you feel like the moment that you stop putting your everything in, all the moment you like do take a break, or, and I feel this especially in COVID, where you're just like, well, my video games are there, my like Netflix is there, like you could do like anything at any time. It's really like, you can easily be like, but like I'm not working hard enough because I'm not spending every moment, every waking moment of my like physical being like doing something productive. It's this like idea of that like productivity equals good, but it's like finding that balance of like what actually is good for you and maybe what is maybe like harmful sometimes mentally. And that's, I think, why COVID has been important for me, I find, just to be like, okay, I do need to take more time for myself. I do need more time for reflection and like what am I doing this all for? Like, it's good that I'm like being productive and stuff, but like how am I gonna be happy after if all I just do is work, I guess, all the time?
Yeah, and will I be able to do the thing I love if I'm not paying attention to those things? For me, one of slowing down and, you know, everything shutting down from the acting stuff to the studio stuff was a sense of beginning to recognize the subtle and not so subtle signs of burnout within myself.
Yeah.
Like fraying edges of everything. And now for me, the question is, I don't know how you feel about it, like, how do I move forward? How can I kind of move into the next stage of whatever with intention to not let it go? Because I worry that, you know, when I personally hit that place, that creative energy disappears. I lose that sense. I don't know. I feel like, yeah,
sometimes I think it's hard because I think it's just finding, I think a huge part of this has been finding like the right people to surround yourself when you're in those moments.
Interesting.
Because like, you know, I think sometimes we forget that we're all kind of going through the same things, but if you like call that person or just like know who to talk to in those moments that you are kind of losing energy, to just to like regain it, like and it's weird because you don't always know where it's going to come from, right? Like my brother's a musician and he's like 6 years younger than me, like, and I find it like hanging out with him, like I went home to Brampton this weekend and it was just like sometimes I feel really down on myself, even though it's like it's silly at the time, obviously, if you're like not in your own head and you're an outsider, you're like, but you're doing this, you're doing that. And it's like, for me, hanging out with my brother was just like, oh, like it just rejuvenated my energy to like want to accomplish things and do things. And I think that's just like in my blood as like a filmmaker too. Like it's so collaborative, at least the kind of filmmaking I do. And yeah, just rejuvenation is important, and knowing where to find it, I think, too.
Well, can we talk a little bit about collaboration and what collaboration means to you then?
Yeah, absolutely. I think collaboration is like everything for me. I think it like is, I definitely feel like I am energized from other people's like feedback. You know what I mean? It's like if you're talking to someone about an idea, like knowing that your idea is really strong, but if someone else can participate that and like help make it grow, like who knows what can happen. And I think for me, whether it's like me and Alicia's conversations when we were doing Love Stinks, to even pick, like so much grew just from conversation and like being open about our ideas and thoughts. And like, that's so important in film, I think. Yeah. And then, so Alicia's like probably the closest collaborator I have. And like, as of recently, and especially in COVID where everyone's like, hey, you want to work on this? Hey, you want to work on that? Like, I've definitely been starting to collaborate with new people, which is really interesting too. And I think, yeah, it's finding the right people that like can really help your own self-growth, and like knowing, I guess like just knowing who is giving you positive energy that can like help, you know, so that it's a mutual growth. So it's like, you know, with me and Alicia, it's like working on Pig, working on Love Stinks, working on Abuela, like the turns we took, like, you know, listening to each other. Like it's really just, there's a really loud car outside. It really just helped us just like grow as people and as creators. And I really love collaboration in that sense. And I'm looking forward to seeing like what else is next. Like I'm telling you about me and my brother, because he's a musician. He has like a punk-ish kind of band. It's kind of alternative. It's really cool. But, you know, I approached him about my own film, Abuela, which is like this drama. And, you know, he feels connected to it too. But he was like, I was asking him because I was trying to get licensed for the song and I couldn't. And it was just, I was like, you know what if I just made my own song? And I called my brother up. I was like, Robert, do you think you can help me with this thing? He's like, yeah, like I've been learning like, you know, how to do like classical guitar stuff. So we spent a couple of days just like, he came up with all this stuff and I sang on it because I used to sing too. So it was kind of, I had to do like the Spanish like voice and it was fun. Amazing. But like, yeah, and like that was amazing, and like it was a different kind of collaboration. And I found that like working on Abuela like recently, it's just cool to see how like different people with different, I don't know, backgrounds and skills can like really bring something special to the table. And also with Abuela, like it's so funny because like we just didn't want to pay for things, so I was like, we'll just do it ourselves. Like I reached out to like my friend Amanda Anman Wong. She's also a filmmaker and she is really good at music. She's a musician too. And I was like, I want to have these like background, like I need these background TV sounds for this like part of Abuela. So then I just like took my Zoom recorder, went into my closet and recorded these voices. And like, because I used to I went to like a drama school in high school. So like I just had all these silly voices back then. Anyway, so collaboration is fun. And I just kind of, you just kind of have to like see where your heart takes you, like where, like what feels right. I know it sounds like really kind of silly, but it's just true. And just,
well, it takes it back to the question of intuition and that of learning how we listen to our gut. Was that always something that something that developed over your creative life?
The intuition part of things, I think it's a little bit of both. Like I think it's funny because I found like an old journal I wrote, like I had from like high school, where I was like planning out all these things for university and like what I was gonna do and stuff. I was like, bah! Like just like laughing at it because I was like, I was such a planner. And I would always try to like see like, okay, like this is what I have to do to accomplish this. This is what I have to do to get this grant and that grant. But then like, as I got older, I was like, wait a second, like I would start to trust like as many opportunities as could come your way. Like you could make logical decisions, but at the end of the day, like you're only going to know what feels good. Like you're only going to know what the right decisions is based on your feeling. That's just who I am. I don't know. Other people might be different, but it's just always proven to be like the better result in anything I do.
Sometimes it takes time to learn that. It took me a long time to get to that place of recognizing that if it's whenever I've made based on what and artsy fartsy, but that sense of curiosity or excitement, the stuff that brings me joy, when I say yes to those things and I don't force myself to do the things that I'm actually like, oh, I don't know, I've never, that's never taken me in a wrong direction. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Learning how, oh, go ahead.
Oh no, sorry. I was just going to say and I think when it takes you into a new direction, even if it's something where you might have that little bit of because I think it's normal too to have a little bit of fear in anything you do when you're just well, I still have this little bit of doubt, but I think that doubt kind of in the end, if you do choose to do that thing, that doubt will just kind of disappear over time, because it kind of transfers into energy towards just making it work and making it happen and just doing the best you can with what you have.
And that fear sometimes is the fear of not knowing exactly everything that's going to unfold.
Yeah. And I think that's something that I'm still learning, is it's just well, you can't just predict everything. Not everything is going to go right, and you just kind of have to go with the flow. So as much as you can plan and be well, if this happens, sometimes you just have to go with it and just trust in the greater forces. I don't know.
And that sounds a bit like the producer in you as well, talking how do you, because I don't know if, take a moment to explain what a producer is to folks who might be watching.
Yeah, I think trust me, this is a question I got a lot, when I would go to family gatherings after I graduated. People are so what do you do? And I'm well, I produce. They're what is that though, right? Because people kind of know what a director is, and even then, if people don't know film, they also still don't know what a director is. But yeah, a producer is someone who just kind of does, I would say, it's just a little bit of everything, just bringing the people together, sorting out the logistics, and depending on what projects you have, there can be multiple producers. I know on Pick, Vanessa, who is the other producer of Pick and also Alicia's twin, she would take more care of the finances and stuff, because she did arts management and for her university. So she was a lot more, she was doing accounting too. So she knew a lot more about the financial side of things. And so she took care of that, whereas I was more in charge of finding the crew and organizing the booking of equipment, and yeah, on the day of the shoots, just kind of working with the production coordinators and the production managers to be okay, what the logistics of the day, and if there's an emergency, what happened was one person could a person that was really vital to the film who was an extra, they didn't show up. We're oh, okay, and it's just control of okay, we just got to make this work. Let's not worry Alicia right now. She's just in her creative space. And we just left her, and we were just okay, what's the plan? And we're working together, and we figured out a solution, and it all worked out in the end. And it's easy. I think another thing that a producer is just someone who can kind of make decisions really quickly and kind of, but also calmly, because I don't know if I get that from working in the service industry either, where everyone's just at all times, and you have to just be smiling and be it's all good here, your food's ready. It's kind of that in terms of the film world too, I think, kind of in a way.
And that's something I think, unless you've been a part of a film project, and you wouldn't necessarily understand that element of how you learn how to deal with things as they come to you, and try to participate as much as you can. But yeah, when you just have to work with things when they sometimes you can't anticipate everything that might happen, and being able to do that with kind of a grounded quality is such an important skill to have. It's so important. But you also touched on something there, which I think is beautiful with regards to collaboration and working, I guess, in the an enabling role, a creatively enabling role, about being that support, that kind of knowing that there's a difference between the creative space requires a certain kind of security. So not bothering Alicia with small things, for example, or the big things that happen.
Yeah.
Being able to take care of, letting her do what she needs to do in that moment. That's also a really beautiful thing. Was that something that you, again, is that instinct for you? Is that intuition, or is that something that you?
I think it was, and it's also knowing knowing the people that you're working with, and obviously me and Alicia are very close, so and also Vanessa is super close to Alicia. She's literally her twin. So we just kind of looked at each other and we're let's not talk to Alicia about this. And she's no, we'll figure it out. And it's just knowing that. And then when we talked to Alicia later, she's thank God you guys didn't tell me, because I would have been so stressed. And you know what I mean? It's just knowing what is worth really worrying about, and like who to make worry about it. You know what I mean? It's like, if it's not someone's problem in that moment, it's like just yeah, following your intuition to like evaluate who needs to know this problem, who can be there to solve the problem. And yeah,
it's a super
who you're working with, because some directors might want to know that. I don't know.
That's true as well. Like there's intimacy to the relationship, which requires you to know, like really understand as much as the person that you're working with. It's that, well, in the situations, the most ideal of situations. Now, like Alicia is now your producer, yes?
Yeah, for a while, yes.
That's amazing. So what has that switching of roles been like for you?
It's honestly really cool, because I think, well, it's funny about me and Alicia is like, we do have a lot of similarities in terms of like, she's also like a really, really amazing producer, like even though she's been focusing on directing. And it was been really awesome to just have someone who cared just as much about a project as I did. You know what I mean? Like to experience like the flip side of things, to have like my personal story, like, and something I connect so amazingly with, like to have her come in and be like, yeah, like let's make this happen, and like believe in it. You know what I mean? Because again, as artists, we all kind of experience this like a little bit of doubt, you know, in ourselves, sometimes a lot of doubt, where you're like, who cares about this story? Are my characters good? You know what I mean? Like, but she really believed in me, and I really just like, you really like appreciate that. And you know, I always felt like supported and throughout the whole process, even now, where she's like, you know, when I called her, I was like, so me and my brother think about doing this song together for the end. She's like, I love it. It sounds amazing. You know, it's going to bring it more personal. Like, you know, just having someone there that's that you know is there to make your project the best it can be is like, that's special. You know what I mean? Like not everyone is like that. So finding the right collaborators who can do that for you is like 10 out of 10.
And
amazing.
We're seeing in some of the comments some love coming your way for Love. I think was that the first project you and Alicia worked on?
Yeah. Yeah, the one with the girls who stumble across a Playgirl magazine, and they're like 13 years old, and the one girl thinks that if she sees a naked man, she's gonna like go through puberty automatically, just like grow boobs. So thanks for the shout out. I still wear my Love Sting shirt like often too. I like crop topped it because I just thought it was cooler that way. But
that's very 80s as well, to make it a crop top, right?
Yes, exactly. No, and it's on CBC Gem right now too. So if anyone's out there that hasn't seen it, you can watch it for free.
Yeah, and I put a link to it on the events page over on the LivingRoom Facebook page as well, so you can tune in and watch it through that link there. That was a really interesting. Watching that film was so interesting for me, being of the 80s and seeing, you know, these, you know, young filmmakers telling this John Hughes-esque story, but kind of subverting it, twisting it, shaping the narrative in a direction that would not have been focused on in the same way. Were you guys conscious of doing that at the time?
Yeah, well, it was funny because, I mean, me and Alicia knew each other in university, but we weren't like in the same classes until we got later, like in later years, but we were both quite involved. Like she was the assistant of like the chair of the film department, and I was like, again, like a student leader. So when there was this event happening that Karen Harnish, who is like a big mentor of ours, she's amazing, shout out to Karen Harnish, she was hosting this women in film and television event, like kind of, well, not like with WIFT, but like she was like a women in film event, but you know, where she invited all these different women from different aspects of film, whether it be like sound design or editing or directing, television, documentary. Like it was just a great day. And it was really inspiring. And me and Alicia were just like putting like some equipment away, like we were returning it to the equipment cage, and she was just like, man, like what an eye-opening day. I was like, seriously, like, and she was telling me about the script, where she's like, you know, I wrote the script about these 3 boys who like stumble across a Playgirl magazine. And I'm like, why am I always writing a script about boys being the main characters? I gotta write it. I was like, yo, yeah. We were just like, make it into women. Let's see what happens. And that was in, I think, 3rd year. And then 4th year, she came to me with that script, and I was like, yes, you made them in a woman. And it's like way funnier because like, I think, you know, and we were talking about it then, there's always like this stigma that like, you know, girls don't do these kinds of things, but like, you know, we've all been there. We've been curious. Like I was telling you yesterday, where like, you know, in middle school, like me and or early high school, I don't remember, but we like found this like porn tape in like my best friend's like mom's closet. We're like, let's watch it. And we were horrified, but you know, that's a whole other conversation. But yeah, and it's just like, we are curious too, and I think like that was like a huge part of that film to show that. So
Yeah,
I'm glad that it came, and it was hilarious. And the girl, the girl that was like the main character, Katie, she ended up being in It after as like Betty Ripson, and then she was like in the It 2 as a different character. She went on to big things, so Love Stinks was her start.
and someone's using film for that, because at that point in time you probably could have done it digitally as well, right? Because
Yeah.
by the time I'd left Ryerson, they were beginning to get rid of a lot of their film.
Yeah, and we were the only, I think we were the only people to shoot on film that year. It was, I mean, Alicia was like really strongly wanting to shoot on film too, which I was down for because of the, you know, it's set in the 80s.
Yeah.
Also, there was access to a film camera at the school, which made it, obviously that was free at the time, so we took advantage of that.
Yeah.
Plus all the, like where we got the film stock in Montreal had a really good discount for students, and same with Technicolor at the time when they transferred. It was just like a really good, it was kind of just all a good scenario to do it in, and that's why we did the Kickstarters, because like that stuff costs money. So
Yeah. My day, it wasn't uncommon. Every little scrap would be saved, and so when you went over to a friend's house and you opened the refrigerator, pieces of film, and you just blink an eye, you just saw the canisters there if you were lucky. Yeah. Strange stories about film. Anyways,
yeah,
aging myself. Well, I don't mind. So the relationship with you and Alicia has taken you in lots of exciting places. Are there things that, and now you now are writing and directing. What has that been like for you?
It's been really cool. Yeah, like I think again, I kind of didn't really realize that I would be able to do something like that until I did it. You know, I wrote the story, and then we applied for this, you know, WIFT Bravo Fact pitch competition. We got in, and we're like, okay, sick, we're pitching it. We got second place, which was kind of like, I think as much as we were really like, oh no, we didn't win the money, it was kind of like a good thing because it gave us more time to make the film even better. Plus we were still shooting pick at the time, and yeah, it's given me a lot of confidence in myself. And you know, as soon as we shot it, I was like feeling amazing. Like it was just all around like a good experience, the shoot process for myself at least, and like preparing it. It had its like, you know, hard times. I found like, because there was a lot of processes. Like literally I wrote like a feature version of the script just to apply to a grant, like the shorts to features grant, just to like see if I could get money for the short. I wrote this whole feature. Ooh. We obviously didn't get it, but you know, it was like helped me learn more about like who the characters were. It's just, yeah. And
now you know you can.
Yeah, and being a director is cool because like then I had to learn how to make my own decisions, like my own creative decisions, and like kind of be hard on that, because I felt, you know, I'm still trying to like understand this about myself, where I'm like just having to be assertive in my own decisions, and like working on Awella has given me that space to do so, you know.
Now, or there might be people listening or watching who don't know the word Awella.
Yeah, Awella. Yeah, it means grandmother in Spanish. So my dad is Chilean, as I mentioned. And so the story is based off of the fact that, well, when I was growing up, my abuela and my abuelo would visit like once every, I would say they visited about two or three times when I was younger. Mm-hmm. And it was always like a big deal because they would like come, they would stay there for like 2 months, you know what I mean? They would, because they, you know, never really got to come, so it's a special occasion.
Yeah.
And then I would go to Chile maybe like once every like 3 or 4 years growing up. But the problem is my mom speaks only English. My dad spoke Spanish and English, but teaching me Spanish was really hard in a household where like my mom would always be like, "What are you saying? What are you saying? What are you saying?" And he was just like, you know, he like just gave up. But I think a lot of other like first generation Canadians, second generation Canadians too, like probably feel that wherever their parents are from, right? Like if there's one person that only speaks English, it can be hard to teach that language. So I found it interesting that despite the fact I didn't speak the same language as my grandmother and my grandfather at the time, that I still had like a super special connection with them, you know, like it always felt, yeah, I just couldn't explain it. So I think that making this film, I focused it on my abuela just because like that's what I just ended up being that. But yeah, it's a story about a little girl and her grandmother who spend the day alone together, and then they are able to connect over like making empanadas together. So yeah, it's based on that experience, because I have, you know, it's also within Latinx culture, I think like food, and this is for a lot of other cultures too, which is why I think this film is very universal, as specific as it is.
Mm-hmm.
Like food is a big thing, and making food is a big process. Like it's an important and special process. And, you know, I have a lot of vivid memories of like my abuela at the table, like in my house in Brampton with like, she would make like this big volcano of like flour, and then she would like pour hot water in the middle. Like there's a lot of aspects of this that I couldn't even portray in the film because some people maybe wouldn't get it, or it just would be a little bit too complicated. I had to simplify it a bit. But yeah, those memories were just like super special in my heart, that I just was like, this is what I want to talk about. You know what I mean? And I think I'm very lucky too that, you know, even this is a story about my abuela. I think like I've always connected to my elders, like I got to know my great grandmother, my grandfathers. Like I was very lucky. Yeah, so I think that's why it was important for me to make this film.
I'd love to talk a little bit more about that. The personal stories in a specific way, the importance of representation and authenticity, because I think for a long time it's become a custom for people who don't have any lived experience in a certain experience or a culture or race at times to tell stories of those people. And we've like culturally just gobbled it up over time without questioning anything. And so we've become accustomed, we've made stereotypes and assumptions about what we've seen and how that must be the way.
Mm-hmm.
This sounds like an incredibly personal and specific project for you. Like even knowing that you had to leave certain things out, I can sort of see that part of you. Like, oh man, I wish I didn't have to. Yeah, how important was it for you, like this story told in this way?
It's been very important. And I think like the way me and Alicia do most of our projects too, especially like whether it would be PIC and involving like Black women's experiences, mm-hmm. Or Abuela, like having like different first generation Canadians, Latinx Canadians to come in and join the conversation. We always do like a script reading beforehand or like just script feedback in general, where we do reach out to people who have similar stories or experiences to, you know, also get their feedback on the script to be like, is this coming off as authentically as possible? Mm-hmm. Obviously it's like my own script, right? And I think like the more authentic stories that are told, it's just like it's their voices, like it's our voices that should be telling these stories, I think. And, you know, when you watch films that don't have those authentic voices behind those scripts, it's very obvious. Like I've seen films like that where you're just like watching it and you're like, this definitely did not have like an Indigenous person behind it, because they would never portray that in this way, or this is like a completely made up character. This is not, you know, this is a stereotype, all that stuff. And I think like media is so important. Like the things we consume is so important, because like you said, like some people may not have access, like may not be in communities where like Latinx people are, or Black people are, and it's like important to have these authentic stories being told, because then people will be taking in hopefully there will be a whole new era of content after like COVID is, where people are watching these authentic stories be portrayed, and then, you know, hopefully more authentic versions of people will be taken in and realize like, oh, these are real people, these are real stories. With Abuela, it was really hard too, because we were trying to look for like a Latinx woman who was like older than 60, and that completely makes like the pool of actors like really small, which is probably that probably is reflective of the fact of like what opportunities are out there, right?
Absolutely.
Right? Like, so, you know, if a lot of Latinx women are often only shown as roles as like a maid or like over sexualized character or whatever, what have you. Mm-hmm. You know, it's nice to have these real stories where people can actually do like more meaningful roles and like more multifaceted roles. And I think, you know, the search for Abuela was hard. We almost got a non-actor who was a family friend. But then we, you know, I found a connection, and there was like this Colombian amazing actress. She does a lot of theater, and then she auditioned, and she was just perfect. Like I could just feel the warmth. I was like, that's the Abuela warmth that I want. And then she was amazing on set too, and just like watching her with the young actress who played Kathy, it was just really, really special and beautiful. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. And I think it's enriching too, watching stories like that unfold. I've been thinking a lot about little things that you like, stepping into a role if you don't have time You don't have time to go to Chile or anything like that. Like things you wouldn't know, gestures, you know, just the small, beautiful little things that make it so real and so different from any other kind of story. When you think about someone like yourself watching this movie, you're a young girl watching this movie, what do you hope they take away from it?
I think what I'm really hoping is just people see something in their own selves. And well, because in part of the film, you know, the little girl gets really frustrated over literally because her abuela tried to clean her room because it was a mess, and she like put her Barbies in this like chest the wrong way, and like the hair gets all tangled. And I remember that stuff would like cheese me when I was a kid. I'd be like, no, the Barbie's hair is tangled. And like when you're a kid, you think it's like the biggest problem in the world.
Yeah.
And there's this moment where the abuela is like, you know, there's like this language barrier, and she thought she was cleaning the room. It was like a good thing. And then this little kid's getting mad at her, you know what I mean? And she just wants to like connect and like enjoy this time with her. But, you know, Kathy's being a stubborn kid. So I think hopefully if it's a young person that they kind of realize, oh, like, you know, just because someone speaks a different language than me, it's like should open up for more of like, you still have to be empathetic. You still have to like feel the presence and just understand. I don't know. But I think more of like, I think what I'm hoping with Abuela is just people take from their own experiences. Like people have been like, oh, this reminds me of like when me and my grandpa went fishing, you know, and, you know, even though they spoke the same language, it was like just some people have different relationships with elder people, like where they can't really relate on the same level. And yeah, so I think just hoping that with this film that people will just see themselves in different ways, maybe through different characters. Maybe they feel like the abuela, maybe they feel like the Kathy, the little girl in the film. Maybe they even feel like the dad's character. I think, you know, again, like I wrote like different, I took a lot out of the film that's going to be in the final cut, but there was like a scene, for example, where it involved more of like the parent storyline, because that was another aspect for me where, you know, I'm talking about like the intricacies of, you know, having two parents from two different places where like the Spanish couldn't be spoken in the household as easily. And I'm sure, and I've already like talked to a lot of friends about the similar things where they're like, yeah, this happens to me. Like my one family member only speaks whatever language and my mom only speaks English. And, you know, you also have a little bit of like, you feel like there's a little bit of shame, like shade thrown the way of like, you know, my dad, for example, who a lot of the Chilean side of the family will be like, I can't believe you didn't teach Rebecca and Robert Spanish. Like they're so upset at them. And then, you know, even myself kind of like not hating my dad, but being like, why couldn't you teach me too? And I'm sure it's like a lot more complicated than that. And I wanted to show that in the film, but it was a little bit hard. So there's only like a little bit of like elements of that, but yeah, so I think it's like just seeing yourself in different ways and knowing that it's okay too. You can't be perfect.
That's beautiful. I can't wait to see this. When do you think you might be able to see this? Knowing that film is film, and for folks who don't know film, it takes so much to get a project from the time you shoot it to the time it's released to the public. Like it's
yeah. And we've done like the hard part. I always find like 60%. About 60% of the journey is honestly just finding the money. So now that we have the money and we're in post-production, we're just finishing like with the credits and the sound design. We started submitting to some festivals, but hopefully like in the fall, best case scenario. But if not, hopefully the spring, we'll see. But like keeping my fingers crossed. Yeah.
I love this. I'm so glad you've been able to join today. I think we could talk and talk and talk forever. I do want to revisit that part about, yeah, there's so many things I could keep talking to.
I know, same.
Like I will go back. I'll go back a little bit. I'm trying to keep myself on time, but I do love that idea of specificity and telling your story in a way that's authentic and true to you, because I do feel like that actually helps a story become more timeless and more relatable to people, instead of it just being this generic wash of something we've seen before. That's what makes it so exciting. So I'm so excited to see this movie.
Yeah, me too. And I think that's the thing too, is it's like when we write our own stories, and I think this goes back to the authenticity, you're right, is it's like the more specific you can be. I've heard this from multiple people, but it's like sometimes the more specific you are, the more universal it is. Mm-hmm. And I think, you know, we're all human. We all have different experiences, but a lot of us can relate to each other. Like, that's what's cool about film, is that someone you literally don't know at all could watch it and like cry or just like have different like really intense reactions to, your film. And, you know, I'm really excited to see how people react and how people respond. Because like, even when I just tell people the premise of the film, you know, I've already had conversations where people come back and they'll tell me their own stories. And like, it's a whole conversation about being a first generation Canadian and what's that like, and like on a whole other level of like me even, you know, kind of trying to look and discover more about my identity and my culture, right? Like, and it's really weird to live in a place like Canada, which is very multicultural, but you don't always have the opportunities or the access to understanding about your cultural or your culture or your history just in like a regular way, you know what I mean? Like in an easy way. You have to like really look. And now that I'm at this age, like I'm definitely starting on that journey too. And I think making this film is part of that too.
Yeah, I was going to ask if that will play a part in moving forward in your, whether you're producing or writing, directing, or all of the above, or making music. Do you think that, or making TV shows for the people play in the background? I could see that being a really interesting playlist, just kind of quiet, not real TV shows that people can have in the background. I thought that could be something interesting that people could tune into. Anyways, I'm getting way off track here.
No, I like it.
Moving forward for you, culturally speaking, and connecting with your roots, I suppose, how much do you think that will play a part of what you do creatively?
I think it'll play a pretty big part. I think like, well, once Awella is done, like I'm already feeling like there's something that I want to create. I don't know what exactly the story is yet, but I do want to make it something more about like my Chilean side of the family. I don't know if it would be more of a documentary. I see it maybe even writing like a little, I don't know, like these are all things and ideas that are waiting to come to fruition, because I have a lot of like fun, silly ideas, but then I have like the more serious side of things where, you know, my dad again grew up in like during the dictatorship in Chile, and like growing up as a kid, you know, I had my mom who was telling me these hilarious like fictional stories, and then I had my dad who he would sit up and like tell me stories of his childhood, and he grew up really poor. And he grew up with like 6 brothers and sisters, and you know, he has all these crazy stories of like, honestly, like them having to like help the police like carry a dead man's body down, like ridiculous stuff. And that kind of tells you like what kind of time he was living in.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I feel like there's something there. And you know, I took a course in co-production with Ryerson right after I graduated, and even when I went to Chile in January of this year, trying to start making connections with people in like the film industry in Chile. And that was really cool, because I'm like, maybe that's something that I could do there eventually. So I definitely do want to do more stuff with film, and maybe Chilean Canadian co-productions. If anyone's watching, let me know. But yeah, like when I went to Miami too for PIC, it was really cool because I met more Chilean filmmakers, and I'm like, oh, okay, like this is their industry is doing really well. I think, well, nothing's really feels like it's doing much right now, but like hopefully something will come there.
Okay, so about that, moving forward, I know some of our friends are already out there shooting, and difficult times. What do you hope to take out of COVID into the next part of your journey as an artist?
Yeah, I think a huge thing of COVID, which I'm like, as things start to kind of resume again, like I mentioned, I'm producing a couple of things right now, which some are supposed to happen in September, some have already been pushed to the following year. Mm-hmm. I think, and even like being called into the restaurant to be like, hey, can you work a shift? I'm like realizing that I didn't really enjoy working at the restaurant, trying to figure out.
Yeah,
I think COVID just gave me time to reflect and see what was important, what I value, what I maybe don't need in my life, what like pushes me to grow as a better person, and trying to kind of feel like, I guess, enjoying the silence and like the self-reflection of COVID, to kind of bring that into the next part, because I think we're in a society that's always so like go 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 go, and I'm also like someone who can be very easily swept away by that, where I'm like, yeah, let's go, and I'm like nonstop, and I'm like, it's 12 a.m. but I'm still working on this thing. Like I just don't like, just being more careful with myself, I think that was a long roundabout way of saying being more careful with myself, and like finding a good balance and like focus. Yeah, and finding care, because I think we get so used to, you know, working these days pre-COVID, where it's like 12-hour days, super intense, like, you know, you get home, you basically get ready for bed and you go back to work the next day. Like, I don't know. And I think this was a weird part of my journey where I'm like, what exactly, like, how do I want to, what is my film journey? Is it something that I do where I like work at a production company in the day and I like kind of make films as they come to me? Or is it just something I want to do full time? I'm in this, like, I don't know. There's so many options and I know I can do different things and I know I have the talent to do it, but it's like, what do I truly want, you know?
And what don't you?
Yes. Yeah. Because, you know, and also like, I know we have to wrap it up soon, so I'll try not to make this long.
I'll keep
but
it.
I remember in first year, like one of my tech teachers was like, he like comes in, he's like, so you're probably going to be, so if you're in film, just know you're probably going to get divorced twice. You're going to have kids, but you're not going to see them much. Like he just said something like that. And I was like, what is this? And that's when I decided I was going to do sound design. I'm kidding. And then I just was like, that probably crushed me a little, but I was just like, what the hell? And like kind of thinking back to that and being like, but why do we have to look at art so intensely like that? Like, why does it have to be that way? Like, I'm such a family person that like I struggle to like think that my one thing in my life that will be the most important, that will be like always prioritized, would be my film, because I don't want it to necessarily be like that if it's not healthy and like I'm not happy.
Yeah, and I think
I've been in those places before.
And I hope that it's so funny. We heard the same thing on the side through the acting program. Literally, the casting director who came and said, if you think you're thin, get thinner. If you think like, just like all these things about how hard the industry is, and if you wanted to succeed, this is what you do. And at the time, I wasn't questioning that it was coming from a white man, and who, you know.
Yeah, funny. Same for me.
And so these are things that they've inherited, that they've been taught. So, but why does it have to continue that way? Why can't we start making the differences, the changes now, to make it a more healthy and creative? Because I don't think that kind of lifestyle serves anyone as an artist either. You know, yeah, like, so
Takes away your soul.
right, and your physical health as well. It can be different. I really have to believe that it can be different, and that it's becoming different because of creators like you as well. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. You're asking the questions long before I ever took a moment to reflect on whether that was something right, you know?
I think it's good to, like, I think what has allowed me to do this is honestly, like, kind of going back, like, kind of circling back to the beginning of our conversation here, where it's like finding the right people to have these conversations with. Like,
yeah.
My best friend, like, since I was 8, she's also an artist. She's a visual artist. And I think, like, these are things we talk about because, and I talk about them with Alicia, I talk about them with my brother. Like, I try to have these conversations more often, because sometimes, you know, you get so caught up that if you don't stop to take a moment and like actually reflect, whether that's with yourself and also like looking into, you know, talking to other artists and seeing how they feel, it can really put things into perspective to be like, oh, like, I'm just here to create. I'm just here to offer what I have to offer, like, while I'm alive. And if I'm, you know, not enjoying life, like, what's the point in, you know, like, working so hard? Like, what are you doing it for? Who are you doing it for?
So what advice do you think you'd have for folks who might be listening, who are in the industry, maybe, you know, rediscovering themselves or trying to move forward, or people just into like learning to be a filmmaker or tell stories in this way? What would you say to them?
I would say be true to yourself. Like, find the stories that are within, because that's going to be like where the good stuff is. Mm-hmm. I would say trust yourself, because it's very easy to let this industry, like, you know, put you into dark places sometimes. But, you know, I don't want to say it's normal, but like, it does happen to all of us. Like, even though sometimes social media doesn't make you feel that way. And yeah, just, yeah, mostly, yeah, trust yourself, trust in yourself, and just like follow, just enjoy the journey along the way, because as much as you can have those goals and be reaching, that's great, but don't let yourself get like caught up in all the BS that surrounds that. You know what I mean? Enjoy the journey, because that's what we're here for.
Well, yep.
I wish I had like effects. I'm sure there are, but I don't want to accidentally hang up because I'm terrible.
Well, thank you so very much for joining me today, and hopefully we'll chat again soon. Maybe
yes,
later on when Abuela's closer to being released to the world.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. It's been awesome to just talk about this stuff, because yeah, COVID, you're just in here all the time, and but kind of by yourself. But it's been good.
Yeah,
So, thank you.
I enjoyed it.
Thanks for reaching out also. I appreciate it. And I'm excited for everyone to see this film whenever it comes out. And you'll follow us. I think it's at Awella Short Film, or you could just follow me and I'll be posting all about it as well.
Excellent. Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. I shall release you from the live stream. Yes.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. There we go. Okay. Wow. Everyone, thank you so much for, oh, I got hot there with that light. Ann Tipper would not be happy with what's happening there. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so glad you were able to take some time to meet Rebecca, to learn about her new film that's coming out. We will keep you posted, and you can visit the Living Room's Facebook page in the event. We have links to the other projects that her and Alicia have worked together on, and some photos of the new film, some sneak peek photos. So please do follow Awella, the short film, and let's keep in touch with these creators who are making such important change in the way we tell stories and who our stories are told about. It's time, and it's more exciting. It's an exciting time to be an artist. Yeah, so that's that. And again, just a reminder to folks from the Living Room community, if you'd like to tune in tomorrow over on Facebook, we'll be having another pop-up art studio from 2 to 3:30 p.m. So you can come hang out with me and make art. Just gather whatever supplies you happen to have on hand, and we'll just chat and create together. But in the meantime, thanks for being here again. Thanks for everyone who's watching. If you're a creator out there who would like to have a live stream chat, reach out, say hi. And until we can create and connect with one another again in person, I really look forward to connecting and creating with you right here online. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a wonderful, safe, healthy, loving day. Bye.